Hello there and welcome to Pollstream. We're here again with feedback from our social media handles.
That's right.
As well as trends and election-related topics.
Well, and if you don't know how to be a part of this program, of course, all you need to do is record a 1-minute video of yourself telling us whether or not you are making the trip again to cast your vote. You can also take a selfie on your way or with your PVC and tag our social media handles. But while you send those, let's, of course, take a look at the ones who have already responded, of course, telling us how much fun they're having with this election program.
The Not Too Young to Run bill disrupted the political space, giving young people with character and capacity the chance to seek elective office. Now, however, in recent times, we've seen young candidates drop their ambitions in support of established politicians and other candidates. Now, all this is coming after campaigning and, these guys demanding a fresh phase in the polity.
Well, for me, what catches my attention is, the character and capacity. So it's not like it's any young person,
True.
Yeah, but, you have to show that, that character, and you also need to have that capacity, to prove beyond reasonable doubt that it's not just about being a youth or a young person, but, so certain characters have to be in place.
Show us that you have what it takes.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And we have this up for discussion. We're being joined by a political analyst from our Abuja studio, Martin Obono. Hello, Martin.
Hi. Hello. Good afternoon.
It's good to have you. Now, young people dropping out of the race to support other established candidates. Did this come as a surprise to you?
Well, if you have been a very close, if you've been monitoring and watching the Nigerian political space for a while now, it wouldn't really come to you as a surprise because most political parties actually deploy this kind of tactics or techniques in order to be able to sort of intimidate their political opponents when the elections draw closer. So it's only surprising with the caliber of people who have turned out to say that they want to endorse a particular candidate or the other because the character, like you said, or the things that some of these people espoused while they were campaigning for elections would automatically not make you want to think or believe that a particular candidate who has a particular track record would want to go out of his way to support a particular candidate, that his ideologies and his supposed policies that probably preached during the campaign era do not really tally or match with the particular candidates that they have turned out to endorse. So that's the only thing that surprises me. But in terms of whether I'm really shocked by this kind of functions or this kind of activities, I am not.
Well, I mean, what will be the repercussions for this, Martin?
Okay, so basically, they say they are endorsing a particular candidate, and but at the end of the day, what that automatically does or means is that you're withdrawing from the race. And based on the Section 35 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, there is a provision in that in the law that says that for any candidate to withdraw in an election, you have to write in person and you have to sign that letter. It didn't stop at that. He said you have to transmit that letter to your political party which you represent, or the political party which presented you to INEC, because INEC doesn't really see political candidates. It recognizes the parties. And once the party does that, then INEC can withdraw you from the race, or you can be deemed to have withdrawn. But the room or the opportunity is that you've got to be on, to make this notice, you need to transmit this notice 45 days before the elections. So be that as it may, it is less than 48 hours. It was less than 48 hours when some of the candidates turned up to say they want to endorse a particular candidate or the other. And so that is actually a breach of the Electoral Act. I mean, if you look at it from statutory interpretation, you take the Golden Rule, for example, and say, okay, you want to interpret this section of the law to mean that endorsing a particular candidate and withdrawing and asking your supporters to vote for this particular candidate is tantamount to withdrawal from the race. So that is actually a breach of the Electoral Act. And it is left for INEC to take up on this and see how they can ensure that this doesn't happen again, because it ought to serve as a deterrent to others. This does not only affect the candidates themselves, it also affects the people who believed in them, who invested in them. There are people who donated, who made donations from their widow's mites. There are people who also supported them in kind. And all these sacrifices are just washed down the drain. And then you're not talking about the taxpayers' money that has been used to print most of these candidates to put most of these candidates on the ballot. So you have candidates on the ballots who were printed. I mean, this is money that was used. There was ink, there were papers and all that. So it cost the nation as well for you to say you're withdrawing from the race when and also violating the Electoral Act. And then when you consider the psychological implication also, so hopes are dashed. So for example, a particular candidate tells me that he wants to give me free education, and I believe strongly in you to say that you're going to provide free education when you win, you're going to create jobs when you win, or if you win, or, you know, certain kind of values that you espouse, and I think, or policies that you push out there. And then you tell me just on the eve of election that you're withdrawing from the race to support another candidate that didn't promise me all these things. So it brings also some level of trauma to an electorate or a voter who has invested so much in this. I think they will be criminalized in our laws, such that people will not be given opportunity to do this kind of thing.
Martin, can you hear me? Very quickly, how do we tell the difference between the guys that are serious and the guys who are not? Because, as you said, there's a lot at stake, psychological, and then they're going to come back next time. Yeah. People are going to say, oh, they're not serious. How do we tell, you know, the serious guys from the unserious guys?
You can hardly tell, except you carry out a serious security or background check, because some people already said that some of these candidates, based on security or intelligence reports, that some of these candidates were already being sponsored by certain candidates and certain political parties. So, but on the face value, you can't really decide and say, okay, this particular candidate is being sponsored by this or that, except it does a thorough background check. So it is different. And also, the way they all, on the other hand, the way they also campaign can also give away a particular candidate that you know is a mole in the elections. So, for example, a candidate who doesn't go around, you want to run for president, for example, and you haven't gone around some parts of the country or even some parts of the states to campaign or solicit for votes. That, for me, is a red flag. Also, if you basically believe that you just campaign on social media and that's it, that, for me, is a red flag. So there are certain indices that you can use, essentially, without necessarily going too deep into security issues or intelligence issues to find out whether or not a particular candidate is really committed into this. Also,
okay, Martin, I'd have to hold you there. I mean, I wish we could go on, but of course, we'd have to say thank you for joining us on the program and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Martin. Now, it's interesting to note that despite, all these last-minute endorsements of other candidates, some young people have remained resolute and have stuck to their guns, and they head into the polls despite any pressure to step down.
Yeah.
That's interesting.